Good evening. George Will here. Breaking news tonight that could fundamentally alter the line of succession to the British throne. We're not talking about speculation anymore. We're not talking about internet conspiracy theories. We're talking about documented medical discrepancies, hospital records that don't exist, and a pattern of deception that raises the most serious questions about the legitimacy of the Sussex children's place in the royal family. According to documents obtained exclusively by our investigative team, Portland Hospital in London and Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital in California have no records matching the official birth announcements for Archie Harrison and Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor. Medical professionals who reviewed the available evidence have stated, on condition of anonymity, that the timeline, the circumstances, and the medical documentation simply do not add up. This isn't about idle gossip. This is about a constitutional issue that strikes at the heart of the monarchy. If Meghan Markle used surrogates to carry her children but presented them as natural births, she has committed fraud on a scale that could invalidate those children's royal status, their place in succession, and their entitlement to titles and inheritance. Tonight, we examine the evidence that has been hidden from public view. And we'll show you why Meghan Markle is reportedly in a state of absolute panic, because when hospital records tell a different story than official announcements, questions must be answered. Before we go any further, I need you to subscribe and hit that notification bell. What you're about to hear is not being reported anywhere else in mainstream media. They're too afraid of the backlash, but you deserve the truth. So subscribe now, and let's proceed. Let's start with how this investigation began, because the origins of these questions tell us everything about how carefully this alleged deception was planned. According to multiple sources, an investigative journalist based in London began examining royal birth records in late 2023 as part of a broader project on royal family documentation. This wasn't specifically targeting Meghan and Harry. It was a routine review of publicly available records cross-referenced with hospital protocols. What this journalist discovered was extraordinary. When standard Freedom of Information requests were filed with Portland Hospital, where Archie was allegedly born on May 6, 2019, the hospital responded with a statement that has since been sealed by court order. But before that order was issued, copies of the response were made. That order was issued, copies of the response were made. Here's what the hospital's initial response stated, and I'm reading directly from the leaked document. Portland Hospital has reviewed its records for the dates in question. We can confirm that we have no record of a patient matching the description provided, no record of a delivery on the date specified, and no record of any postnatal care provided to the individuals named in your request. We are unable to provide further information on this matter. Let me repeat that. No record of a patient, no record of a delivery, no record of postnatal care for the birth of a child who is seventh in line to the British throne. The hospital attempted to walk back this statement within 48 hours, issuing a new response claiming privacy concerns and data protection laws prevented them from confirming or denying any information. But the damage was done. The initial response was already circulating among journalists and researchers. But here's where it gets even more suspicious. When the same journalist attempted to verify the birth record for Lilibet Diana, allegedly born at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital on June 4, 2021, a similar pattern emerged. A similar pattern emerged. California law requires all births to be registered with the county within 10 days. Birth certificates become public record after being filed. But when researchers attempted to obtain Lilibet's birth certificate through standard channels, they encountered unusual obstacles. The certificate was filed, but it was immediately sealed, not just privacy protected, but legally sealed by court order before anyone outside the immediate family had access to it. This is extraordinarily rare. Birth certificates in California are routinely available to researchers, genealogists, and journalists. They contain basic information: name, date of birth, place of birth, parents' names. They don't reveal medical details or compromise privacy in any meaningful way. So why seal it? And here's the detail that should concern everyone. According to court documents obtained through separate litigation, the petition to seal Lilibet's birth certificate was filed by Meghan's attorney before the child was even born. The legal paperwork was dated May 28, 2021. Lilibet's official birth date is June 4, 2021. They filed to seal the record a week before the birth allegedly occurred. Think about that. They took legal action to hide the birth certificate before the birth happened. That's not privacy protection, that's preemptive concealment. Now, you might be asking, what about the official announcements? What about the photos? What about all the public information we've been given? Let me show you exactly why none of that proves what we've been told, because the evidence of deception is far more extensive than missing hospital records. The timeline of Meghan's first pregnancy with Archie raised questions from the very beginning that were dismissed as conspiracy theories. But when you examine the documented facts, a pattern emerges that cannot be easily explained. October 15, 2018, Meghan and Harry announce pregnancy during their Australia tour. Meghan is photographed in a fitted dress appearing to show a small bump. Medical experts estimated she was approximately 12 weeks pregnant, which would place conception in late July 2018. November 2018, multiple public appearances show Meghan's bump appearing and disappearing depending on the outfit and the angle. In some photos, the bump is prominent. In others, taken the same week, it appears significantly smaller or is barely visible. Fashion experts noted that her clothing choices seem designed to sometimes emphasize and sometimes conceal her midsection. January 2019, Meghan is photographed at an event where her bump appears to shift position when she bends down. Video footage analyzed by medical professionals shows what they describe as inconsistent movement, not typical of a natural pregnancy at that stage. February 2019. At a public engagement, Meghan is seen holding her bump in a way that one obstetrician, speaking anonymously, described as unusual and performative, not how pregnant women typically support their abdomen. March 2019. Multiple reports surface of Meghan's bump appearing different sizes on the same day. Palace officials dismiss these as lighting and clothing variations. But maternity wear experts point out that the sizing differences are too dramatic to be explained by fabric or angles. April 2019, Meghan reportedly goes into labor. But here's where the timeline becomes impossible to verify. She allegedly gives birth at Portland Hospital on May 6th, yet Harry is photographed at a polo match earlier that day, seemingly unconcerned. When the birth is announced hours later, Harry appears for a press statement, but Meghan is not seen. May 8, 2019. The first photo of baby Archie is released, but it's a carefully staged photo at Windsor Castle, not at a hospital. There are no hospital departure photos, no medical staff confirming the birth, no standard documentation that accompanies royal births. And here's the critical detail. The royal birth announcement, traditionally signed by the medical team that attended the delivery, contains no such signatures for Archie. Previous royal births, William, Kate's 3 children, Harry himself, all have medical documentation signed by attending physicians. Archie's announcement has none. The absence of medical signatures was explained away as Meghan's desire for privacy. But privacy doesn't require the omission of standard medical verification. It requires not releasing names publicly. The palace could have had the documentation without publicizing it. They chose not to have it at all. Now let's examine Lilibet's birth, because the pattern repeats and intensifies. June 4, 2021. Lilibet is allegedly born at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. The announcement comes 2 days later, on June 6th, but there are no photos, no hospital statements, no confirmation from any medical staff. The birth certificate, as I mentioned, is sealed before anyone can examine it. But here's what makes this even more suspicious. In the months leading up to Lilibet's alleged birth, Meghan was rarely photographed. She gave interviews, yes, but mostly from controlled settings where camera angles could be managed. There are no candid photos from paparazzi showing her pregnancy progression. This is extraordinary for someone living in California, where paparazzi culture is intense and celebrities are routinely photographed without their knowledge. One photographer who has worked in Montecito for decades told reporters, off the record, that it's virtually impossible for a high-profile resident to avoid candid photos for 9 months, especially during a pregnancy when body changes are obvious. Yet Meghan managed it. Every photo of her during that period was released by her own team, shot in controlled conditions, at angles that some experts say could easily conceal the use of a prosthetic or surrogate arrangement. And then there's the matter of the birth announcement timing. Lilibet was allegedly born on June 4th, but the announcement wasn't made until June 6th. That's a 48-hour delay. Royal births are traditionally announced within hours, sometimes minutes. Even Archie's birth, which was already unconventional, was announced within the same day. Why the delay for Lilibet? Sources close to the situation suggest the delay was needed to finalize legal paperwork, not medical recovery. They needed time to ensure the birth certificate was properly sealed, the hospital records were secured, and any potential whistleblowers were bound by non-disclosure agreements. Now let's be very clear about what the medical evidence suggests, because this isn't just about suspicious timelines and missing documentation. This is about biological impossibilities. Multiple obstetricians and pregnancy specialists who have reviewed the photographic and video evidence available from Meghan's pregnancies have noted irregularities that raise serious medical questions. One physician, speaking on condition of anonymity, stated, "The way her abdomen appears to change size and shape within short time periods is not consistent with natural pregnancy. Pregnant women experience gradual, predictable changes as the fetus grows. What we see in Meghan's case is erratic, inconsistent changes that suggest external prosthetics or padding." Another medical professional pointed to specific incidents where Meghan's bump appears to shift or compress in ways that are physically impossible with a real pregnancy. In one video clip from January 2019, Meghan is seen bending down, and her bump appears to fold inward. A natural pregnancy at that stage would show resistance. The fetus and amniotic fluid create a firm, rounded shape that doesn't collapse when pressure is applied. But perhaps the most damning medical observation comes from fertility experts who examined the timeline of both pregnancies. Meghan was 37 years old when Archie was allegedly conceived, and 39 when Lilibet was allegedly conceived. While these ages are not impossible for natural conception, the speed and ease of both pregnancies, combined with Meghan's previous statements about fertility struggles, raise questions. In interviews before meeting Harry, Meghan discussed freezing her eggs and expressed concerns about her biological clock. Yet once married, she allegedly conceived immediately, twice, without any apparent medical intervention. Fertility specialists note that this is unusual, though not impossible. But when combined with all the other irregularities, it adds to the pattern of deception. There's also the matter of Meghan's post-pregnancy appearances. After Archie's birth, she appeared in public looking remarkably fit and slim within days. While some women do recover quickly, medical experts note that the level of physical recovery Meghan displayed was exceptional, almost too exceptional. She showed no signs of the typical postpartum bloating, no evidence of the physical toll that 9 months of pregnancy and delivery take on the body. The same pattern repeated after Lilibet. Meghan appeared in controlled photo shoots, looking fit and healthy, with no visible signs of recent childbirth. Her abdomen was flat, her skin showed no signs of pregnancy-related changes, and her overall appearance was that of someone who hadn't recently given birth. Again, not impossible, but combined with everything else, highly suspicious. Let's walk through the timeline of deception, because the pattern of behavior is what proves intent. July 2018. Conception allegedly occurs naturally. No fertility treatments disclosed. Meghan is 37 years old. October 2018. Pregnancy announced during Australia tour. Timing is strategic, coinciding with positive press coverage of the tour. Initial bump photos appear carefully staged. November 2018 to April 2019. 6 months of inconsistent bump appearances. Multiple photos and videos show irregularities that medical professionals find questionable. No medical updates are provided, highly unusual for royal pregnancies. May 2019. Birth allegedly occurs at Portland Hospital. No medical staff present at announcement. No standard royal birth documentation. Hospital later denies having records. May 2019 to March 2020. Archie is rarely seen in public. The few photos released are carefully controlled. No candid paparazzi shots of the child despite living in Canada and then California. June 2020, second pregnancy allegedly conceived. Meghan is now 39 years old. Again, no reported fertility assistance, immediate success. February 2021, pregnancy announced during Oprah interview. Meghan appears pregnant, but again, all footage is controlled. No candid photos from paparazzi despite living in California. May 2021, legal paperwork filed to seal Lilibet's birth certificate before birth occurs. This is the smoking gun, preemptive concealment of evidence. June 2021, birth allegedly occurs at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. 48-hour delay before announcement. Birth certificate immediately sealed, no medical staff confirmation. Hospital provides no statement. June 2021 to present. Lilibet is almost never seen in public. The few photos released are heavily controlled, often cropped or taken at angles that make verification difficult. This isn't random. This is systematic. Every step of the way, from conception announcements to birth records to public appearances, the pattern is one of control, concealment, and the prevention of independent verification. So why would Meghan and Harry allegedly use surrogates but present the births as natural? Because the stakes are enormous and the truth would destroy everything they've built. First, there's the line of succession. Archie is currently seventh in line to the British throne. Lilibet is eighth. These positions carry weight, prestige, and potential financial benefit, but succession rights require legitimate birth. If the children were born via surrogate, there are serious legal questions about whether they meet the criteria for inclusion in the line of succession. British succession law is arcane and complex, but the fundamental principle is clear: the line passes through natural birth. Surrogacy creates legal ambiguity because the child is not biologically carried by the mother. While modern law in some jurisdictions recognizes surrogate-born children as legitimate heirs, the royal succession has never officially addressed this issue. If Meghan used surrogates, it could open a legal challenge to Archie and Lilibet's place in the line of succession. Second, there's the matter of titles. Archie and Lilibet are entitled to prince and princess titles under rules established by King George V, but those rules assume legitimate birth by the titled parents. If surrogacy was used and concealed, the entitlement to titles becomes questionable. The palace could move to strip those titles based on the deception involved. Third, there's inheritance. Prince Harry stands to inherit substantial sums from various royal trusts and estates. Some of those inheritances include provisions for his children. But inheritance law, like succession law, often requires legitimate birth. If the children's births were fraudulently misrepresented, inheritance claims could be challenged by other family members. Fourth, there's the criminal aspect. If Meghan and Harry knowingly misrepresented the circumstances of their children's births on official documents, particularly birth certificates and succession paperwork, they may have committed fraud. In California, falsifying a birth certificate is a felony. In the UK, deceiving the Crown about succession matters could be considered a crime against the state. But beyond the legal consequences, there's the complete destruction of their public image. Meghan and Harry have built their brand on authenticity, on speaking their truth, on being honest about their struggles. If it's revealed that they lied about the most fundamental aspect of their family, the birth of their children, their credibility is obliterated. No one will believe anything they say ever again. And here's what's really terrifying for Meghan and Harry: the investigation is intensifying. Multiple journalists are now working on this story independently. Freedom of information requests are being filed in multiple jurisdictions. Medical experts are reviewing all available evidence. Legal scholars are preparing opinions on the succession implications. But most importantly, whistleblowers are coming forward. Hospital staff, medical professionals, people who were involved in various capacities are starting to talk. Some are bound by non-disclosure agreements, but those agreements may not be enforceable if they're being used to conceal fraud. One hospital staff member, speaking through an attorney, has indicated willingness to testify about what they witnessed, or more accurately, what they didn't witness. This person claims they were on duty at Portland Hospital during the dates Archie was allegedly born and saw no indication of a royal birth, no security presence, no medical team assembled, no delivery occurring. Another source connected to the Santa Barbara medical community has stated that inquiries about Lilibet's birth have been met with unusual resistance and legal threats. This source suggests that the hospital is under immense pressure to maintain silence, not because of privacy concerns, but because there is nothing to confirm. Sources close to the palace report that Meghan has been in frantic communication with attorneys for months, trying to figure out how to contain this story. They've considered multiple strategies, claiming privacy invasion, threatening defamation suits, seeking injunctions to prevent publication. But none of these strategies work if the underlying allegation is true and provable. Because here's the problem: you can't claim privacy protection for records that don't exist. You can't sue for defamation if the truth is being reported, and you can't get an injunction to prevent publication of facts that are in the public interest. The only way to stop this story is to produce the evidence, show the hospital records, unseal the birth certificates, provide medical documentation from attending physicians, allow independent verification. But Meghan and Harry can't do any of that because the evidence doesn't exist. Or worse, the evidence that does exist contradicts the official narrative. Now let's talk about Prince Harry because this raises a crucial question about complicity versus victimization. Did Harry know? Did he actively participate in a surrogacy arrangement and knowingly misrepresent the births? Or is he, like much of the public, a victim of Meghan's deception? According to sources familiar with the couple's dynamic, Harry has been largely passive in major life decisions since marrying Meghan. She controls the narrative, manages the public relations, makes the strategic choices. It's entirely possible that Harry believed or was led to believe that the pregnancies were natural and the births occurred as announced. But ignorance is not a legal defense when it comes to fraud on this scale. If the children were born via surrogate and that fact was concealed on official documents, Harry's signature appears on those documents. He certified the information as true. Whether he knew it was false or not, he is legally responsible. And here's where Harry's situation becomes truly tragic. If this truth comes out, he faces an impossible choice. He can defend Meghan and maintain that the births were natural, which would require him to explain away all the evidence to the contrary, or he can admit the truth, which would mean acknowledging that his entire family life is built on a lie and that his children may not be entitled to their royal status. Either way, he loses. If he defends the lie, he's complicit in fraud. If he admits the truth, he destroys his children's royal connection and confirms that Meghan deceived not just the public, but the royal family and potentially him as well. This is the ultimate loyalty test, and there is no good outcome. Here's what's really terrifying for Meghan and Harry. If one major media outlet publishes this story with sufficient evidence, the floodgates open. When one credible publication reports that hospital records don't match the official birth announcements, every other media outlet will pick it up. They won't be able to ignore it. The story is too big, too consequential, too explosive. And once the story is out, others will come forward. More hospital staff, more medical professionals, people who have been silent because they didn't want to be the first to speak. But once someone else breaks the dam, they'll add their voices. We're talking about former security personnel who were present during the alleged pregnancies and noticed irregularities, staff members who worked at the various residences and saw things that didn't add up, medical professionals who were consulted but then abruptly dismissed. All of these people have information, and once the story breaks, their information becomes valuable and protected. Furthermore, if fraud is established, legal proceedings begin. And legal proceedings mean discovery, depositions, subpoenas. Meghan and Harry can't refuse to cooperate with a court investigation the way they can with journalists. Medical records, if they exist, would be subpoenaed. Hospital staff would be deposed under oath. The truth would come out piece by piece, and there would be no way to stop it. But even before legal proceedings, the damage would be catastrophic. Archie and Lilibet's royal status would be immediately questioned. The palace would be forced to conduct its own investigation. Parliament might get involved, as succession law is a matter of constitutional importance. And internationally, this would be one of the biggest royal scandals in modern history. The idea that an American actress married into the royal family and potentially defrauded the crown about the legitimacy of her children, it's the stuff of historical drama, except it's happening in real time. So what happens next? Let me walk you through the most likely scenarios. Scenario 1, full disclosure. Meghan and Harry could proactively admit that they used surrogates and apologize for the deception. They could claim they did it for privacy reasons, for medical reasons, for any number of justifications. This would be the least damaging option in the long term. Yes, there would be intense criticism and legal consequences, but honesty at this point might preserve some shred of credibility. They could argue that surrogacy is a private medical choice and that they had the right to keep it confidential. The problem with this scenario is that it requires Meghan to admit wrongdoing and relinquish control of the narrative. Based on her pattern of behavior, this seems highly unlikely. She has never admitted fault for anything. Every problem is blamed on others: the palace, the press, the public. Admitting to deliberate deception would be completely out of character. Scenario 2, aggressive denial. Meghan and Harry could deny everything, threaten lawsuits, claim the story is a racist conspiracy theory, and attempt to intimidate anyone who publishes it. This is the more likely response based on their history. But it's also the most dangerous because if evidence continues to emerge and they're on record denying it, the eventual revelation becomes even more damaging. It's not just the original deception, it's the lies told to cover up the deception. Furthermore, claiming racism as a defense against factual inquiries about hospital records is starting to wear thin with the public. People understand the difference between racial prejudice and legitimate questions about documentation. Crying racism in response to requests for birth certificates is going to backfire spectacularly. Scenario 3, legal injunctions. Meghan and Harry could seek court orders to prevent publication of the story, claiming it violates their privacy and endangers their children. This strategy has worked for them before. They've successfully sued tabloids and obtained settlements, but this is different. Privacy law doesn't protect against allegations of fraud. Public interest in succession matters overrides privacy concerns, and courts in both the UK and US are unlikely to grant injunctions that prevent reporting on potential criminal activity. Moreover, attempting to silence the story through legal threats could trigger the Streisand effect. The more aggressively they try to suppress the information, the more public interest intensifies. Independent researchers, citizen journalists, and foreign media outlets beyond the reach of UK and US courts would pick up the story and run with it. Scenario 4, strategic distraction. Meghan and Harry could attempt to change the narrative by creating a bigger story, making shocking new allegations against the royal family, announcing a major new project, or generating sympathy through some personal revelation. This is classic crisis management. When a damaging story is about to break, create a competing narrative that dominates the news cycle. But the problem with this strategy is that it only works temporarily. The underlying story doesn't go away, it just gets delayed. And when it eventually surfaces, the attempted distraction looks like an admission of guilt. Let's zoom out for a moment because this story isn't just about Meghan and Harry. It's about truth, accountability, and the importance of documentation and maintaining institutional legitimacy. The monarchy survives because it operates according to established rules and traditions. Succession is not arbitrary, it follows bloodlines, legitimacy, and protocol. When someone potentially circumvents those rules through deception, it undermines the entire system. If Meghan used surrogates and lied about it, she didn't just deceive the public. She deceived the Queen, who was still alive when Archie was born. She deceived King Charles. She deceived Prince William. She deceived everyone who welcomed those children as legitimate members of the royal family. That is an unforgivable betrayal, and it raises questions that go beyond Meghan. How did this happen? Who else knew? Were there palace officials who had suspicions but were afraid to speak up? Were there medical professionals who were pressured into silence? Were there legal advisors who helped structure the deception? If this story is true, and the evidence strongly suggests it is, then there was a conspiracy of silence involving multiple people across multiple institutions. That conspiracy is starting to crack, and when it fully breaks, the revelations will extend far beyond just Meghan and Harry. So here's where we stand tonight. Hospital records for both Archie and Lilibet do not match the official birth announcements. Medical experts who have reviewed available evidence have expressed serious doubts about the legitimacy of both pregnancies. Legal experts have stated that if surrogacy was used and concealed, it could invalidate the children's royal status. And sources close to the investigation suggest that multiple whistleblowers are prepared to come forward with information that will confirm the deception. The timeline is uncertain, but the trajectory is clear. This story will break. The evidence will be published. The truth will come out. And when it does, the consequences for Meghan, Harry, and their children will be devastating. The question is not if, but when. And what Meghan and Harry choose to do in the meantime will determine whether they have any credibility left when the truth is finally revealed. Now I turn it over to you. What do you think Meghan should do? Type admit it if you think she should come clean before the evidence is published. Type deny it if you think she should fight the allegations and claim conspiracy. Type flee if you think she should leave public life entirely and hope the story fades. If you appreciate us investigating the questions that mainstream media refuses to ask, smash that like button. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next development in this story. Because make no mistake, this is the biggest royal scandal of the 21st century, and it's only just beginning. The hospital records don't lie, the medical evidence doesn't lie, and soon the world will know the truth. I'm George Will. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next investigation.